Hey, okay, so we had four pro shows this weekend. I think it was four. We'll get into it. And Lawna Dunbar won her first pro show, so that is very exciting. Let's start with talking about the Ben Weider. If this video is too long, I'm going to just do the Ben Weider here and then move on. And before I get into, and then do another video. And before I get into anything, let's first just start with what I always say, which is that the pictures we're looking at are just that. They're pictures. We don't know. I don't know how anyone looked in person. I wasn't there. So they could not tell the whole story. And then also, this is not to disparage any of the competitors. I'm just like trying to pretend I'm a judge, which I'm not, and look at it from a judge's perspective. This is nothing personal against any of the athletes. Obviously, everyone looked great. And if I could step on stage today, then I would. And I would have things to say, good and bad, about myself too. So let's get into it. Okay. Let's start with Lawna Dunbar. Well, first, let's go over the people who I said let's look out for. So I said Lawna, Hai, Ukachi, Brittany, Ace, and I said Africa, Deanna, and I think that was everyone. If I'm wrong, let me know. Okay, so let's start with our winner. So Lawna Dunbar won her first pro show ever, which is super exciting. So Lawna is a previous Olympian. She went to the Olympia in 2022, and she got there based on points. It was the last weekend to qualify, and there were 3 or 4 pro shows or something, and it was her, Steen Hansen, and Esther Axala, and then I think fourth person. In order for her to go, then she had to like maintain, or she had to place a certain way to get whatever number of points, and then one of those people ended up like beating her in points, but then the show on the Sunday, Steen or Edster or someone won, which meant that all 4 of them qualified, and only top 3 in the point system qualify for the Olympia. So that was super exciting. So that's how she went to the Olympia at that point. And then in 2023, she took the year off, and in 2024, she's competed a couple times. And my feedback about her was that her backside was not matching the front. Her backside was not as conditioned. I thought she was posing a certain way to compensate for a lack of conditioning, so a lack of loss of body fat. So yeah, let's get into her pro look, or her winning look. So here she is. She's wearing the red as usual. I think she's fully posed here. Let's pull this up. So yeah, I would say she looks fantastic. Conditioning is spot on. Hair, makeup, perfect. Suit, I don't love the suit, but it's Lana's red suit. I just don't like the stoning, but I mean, that's a minor thing. She obviously looks great, and the suit isn't going to be an issue. I mean, a suit could be an issue, but not the suit. The suit is fine. So yeah, very tight in her core, looking, like her conditioning is balanced everywhere. She's not having any issues with keeping her core tight, which is good. And then balanced from top to bottom. You see the taper into her waist. I think she's a little bit crooked here, so I would just want her to, level out her shoulders. And I think this arm could be closer to her body, but everything else I think is pretty good. I think if this foot were a little bit closer, then she wouldn't be tipping over like this. So if her foot were more like, right here instead of where it is. But obviously that didn't matter. She still won the show. And then looking at her back pose, it looks like her conditioning is spot on. So in previous shows, she was looking like she was a little bit soft in the lower body, but I wouldn't say that was the case at this one. I think long term, so yeah, there she is at her last show versus this show. And you can tell she's just tighter here than she was at this show. I mean, maybe it's the lighting at this show, but I would say she overall is tighter. It looks like her low back here is a little bit tighter than it was at this one. So yeah, looks really good. I would want her to open up her shoulders a little bit more, because her legs are still looking a little bit wide to me compared to the upper body. I think if she just honestly spread her lats a little bit while keeping her arms in a similar position, then she would be more balanced from top to bottom. I also think this bottom cut is too small on her. I would want it, you can almost see like her natural tan line from like the summer or whatever, how it's a little bit lighter here. I would want the suit to cover that much because we're seeing the glute flatter here and like slope off. We aren't necessarily seeing where it connects to the upper back. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it just looks shallow, and you just want your glutes to look nice and full. So she still looks pretty balanced, I would say, except for her leg positioning. Maybe it's just that her knees are so bent. But yeah, I would probably straighten the leg a little bit or just bring the stance in, one or the other. I would want to see what both of those look like, and then get more coverage on the suit bottom so we see the roundness of the glute and we don't see this shallowness, because something like this is not going to really work on the Olympia level. And then I believe when she did her first Olympia, she got like in the 30s in her placing. I think that's where she landed in callouts, which is great, especially for a natural athlete. I also think that she needs to brush out these curls. Her hair looked a lot better at the last show she did, but it looks like it's just this finishing touch of like, we see 4 big strands of hair. I would just want them brushed through so she gets that like softness and finished look to her hair. But yeah, I would say open up the shoulder blades, fix the bottom stance a little bit, and get more coverage on the suit bottom. But congratulations, Lawna. That's so exciting. Those things are like things she could easily fix. I mean, long term, I would say just more muscle, but I don't think that's like a secret. It's like most people could get more muscle, especially if you're a natural athlete. You'll probably be told to get more muscle for longer than an enhanced athlete would be told. So yeah, more muscle long term, which she could put on some before the Olympia for sure. And then just those presentation adjustments, in my opinion. I mean, she won, so what do I know? Okay, and let's look at second place. So this is high. And let's look here. So she's not quite as conditioned as Lawna. Let's pull up comparison photos. Okay, so here are our comparison photos. We have Lawna in the center, and then Hai to her side and Ukachi to her other side. So I would say Lawna just has a little bit more wow factor with her presentation than Ukachi and Hai do. Oh, that's cute. It looks like a little Olympia headband on Hai's head. So yeah, I would say that with her, Lawna just stood out and had wow factor compared to the other two. And then looking at their back pose, I would say in terms of balance and fullness, I probably would have given, I mean, we'll look at the individual photos, but just like looking at this, I would go with Hai in the first place. Just because of those posing things that we talked about. The scorecards reflected a perfect score, so, I mean, there's no way it was actually a perfect score. It's very unlikely that it was a perfect score at any show, not, like, just this one. So, yeah, but I think Lawna had more wow factor. You could tell that Hai's makeup could just be amplified. It looks a little bit too, everyday makeup. It needs to have a little bit more glam and wow factor. And I think a little more projection on this upper outer glute would really serve her well. And Lawna had more of that projection in the front pose. But yeah, probably just overall a little bit more size, but her conditioning looks balanced across her whole physique. I'm seeing some tanning issues up here, which is drawing my attention negatively to her shoulder. But, yeah, she looks great. So what is her competition history? Okay, she got 5th at the Monster Zim show. And I feel like there were a lot of people at that show. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay, we talked about her. Yeah, I think she definitely got tighter since that show, and maybe she just needs to be tighter still. Okay, yeah, there were 8 people at that show, so not huge. But yeah, I think maybe if she were a little tighter, then she would get more of that pop in her muscles. Let's look at her back pose. Yeah, maybe if she were tighter, she'd get more projection and a little bit more of that wow factor, but I think her back pose is really good. Between her and Lawna, I probably would give the back pose to her just because her bubbliness and fullness looks really good. I don't think Lana's was as strong as hers is. Lana's front pose is really strong, and her back pose is great, obviously. Like, you don't get to the Olympia without having a great back pose. But in terms of, like, fullness, this is giving me more of like Maureen, like in terms of bubbliness and all that. And I'm looking at her tan. Her tan looks better on the back. So yeah, congratulations to her. And then we have Ukachi, which is someone that I was saying I was really excited to see. She won the Arnold Amateur in 2022, and then she competed at the Arnold in 2023, and she placed above other people who had to get their invitation for it. So yeah, let's look at her. I wonder if that's fully posed, that front pose. Okay, this one is probably fully posed. So yeah, with Ukachi, hair, makeup, gorgeous. Love, 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 love this. The suit, I think, is a little bit dark. I think she could get more pop from a different suit. So, like, let's take, for instance, the one that she won this show in. I think this suit really popped on her. So green is great for her, and I would prefer this kind of green over the dark green that she chose. So, yeah. And when I look at this front pose, I would say that Ukachi's back pose is her strongest. So, in her front pose, I think I don't know if it's core control, but her core is looking a little thick in comparison to the shape she's getting here. And I think what's happening is that her pelvis is tilted forward. So that's why we're seeing this dip in her upper outer glute here. I think if she arched her back a bit, then she would get more of that shapeliness from in the bottom half of her pose, and her waist wouldn't look like it's similar in thickness to her lower half. I'm also seeing some tanning things here. I wonder if it's just the photos, but yeah, so I would arch the back a little bit more, bring the arm closer to frame your glute, and that should solve this issue. And maybe she just needs to keep her core a little bit tighter, and maybe she could angle her shoulders a little bit more towards the judges, and she could also angle this knee a little bit more towards the judges, and I think that would give her a better overall hourglass shape. And looking at her back pose, yeah, her back pose is super strong, like super strong. Wonder what's going on with this shoulder here. Let's see if there's a different back pose. Okay, yeah, maybe her shoulder is just being too obscured by her hair on the left side. But looking at her back pose, I think the length of the hair could be a tiny bit shorter, but it's not bad at all. You can see her low back. You can see that she has this taper. I would want her to almost maybe angle her elbows a little more towards the judges. I'm not sure, and I don't really want to see this hand. So what she could do is just bring the hands in closer on the inside of her leg, so we don't see any of this palm or like bracelet in her back pose. And then that would also solve the elbows being a little bit too far out, in my opinion, I think. And then she, I think, is just a little bit more conditioned than they would have liked in the hamstrings here. The glute ham tie looks good. It doesn't really look like it's too tight to me. Maybe it could be a tiny bit softer, but I think she would be sacrificing some pop if she got it softer. But she's looking harder here in these hamstrings, and it could just be the lighting, and it could be that there's more glaze on her hamstrings, which is illuminating it more. But yeah, so I think that's what got her in third compared to Lawna and high, but I think the back pose is really strong overall. She could probably open up her lats a little bit more, but yeah, beautiful. I'm just a big fan. I'm just like obsessed. I'm trying not to be biased, but like I totally am, because I really like Ukachi. And then, okay, Brittany Schulman. So she was one of the ones I said we would look out for, because she was the reigning champion, if you will. So she also will be competing in Kansas City this week, coming weekend. Which will be her first open pro show. She won her pro card at the Ben Weider, and then she did her pro debut at the Ben Weider, and won it. And then, she do it like that weekend, the pro show, and then the next year she won it, and then 2024 she went to the Olympia, and now she'll be doing her first open pro show, her first untested pro show this weekend. So I'll be excited to see how that looks. So let's look at her front pose. The concerns I had about her were that she's a little bit washed in the core. Like, we don't really see much detail here. And so that was my concern for going into the show. And it looks like that's still a concern for me. So what it's looking like to me is that she's just a little bit she doesn't really have that pop. Like, at the show that she won last year when she won the Ben Weider, she had a lot of pop and volume to her physique. So that's 2023, and this is 2024. You can just see that the volume in her shoulders is far downsized. Same with her glute. She's posed a little bit differently. I'll get into her posing in a sec. But the way she poses here, I'll just get into it now. The way she's posing it in 2024, she's sitting into that hip, I think, to get more of this glute projection. And maybe that was a decision they made like that day just to make it look like she had more pop, because she's lacking pop compared to what I would consider her best physique. We'll look at her Olympia physique too, but she's lacking a little bit compared to what I think is her best physique. And her pose, I think, was much better here. So yeah, when your knee is bent like this and you're kind of having to sit in the hip, which hunches you forward, it just makes you look like you're posing to overcompensate. And all poses we do are to highlight the best of our physique, but if we're trying to compensate for something, you don't really want it to be obvious. And when you stand like this, it looks a little bit timid, and I think exposes that you don't have something that you should. So whether that's muscle or conditioning, whatever. And maybe she has a ribbiness situation. So maybe it was to conceal some of the ribbiness. She does look a little bit less ribby this time than last time, but I don't think the sacrifice was worth it. So yeah, just lacking some pop. I wonder if there was just, anything could have happened. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe peaking thing. Who knows? Okay. And then going back into her... Oh, where are we? Okay, there we go. Let's look at her Olympia 2 and see what she was looking like there in terms of her pose. Yeah, this pose is way better. So I would just continue to pose like that. It really makes me wonder if she was posing the way she did at Ben Weider this year to compensate for having a lack of pop. So yeah, there was her front pose, and then here was her back pose, and we'll compare her back poses. So her back pose at Ben Weider, well, let's see. Okay, she's posing a little bit better there. Like, still, she's very front facing and like has this bend. It looks a little better though. Getting into her back pose. Okay, there she is. And then, did I not just have that one pulled up? Yes. Okay, here we go. So I think she looks better at this show than she did at the Olympia in terms of posing. So my concern with her posing was that she was so arched that it was making her back look like kind of frail. So I think the back pose is way improved here. So let's just only look at Ben Weider now. So yeah, I think back pose is way improved. I would probably pull these suit bottoms down. I maybe just scrunch them more right there, because it's like when it's rounded like that, it reads to me as diapery. And not in, like, a way against her. Like, when it's like that on me, too, I feel like I'm wearing pull-ups. So yeah, that's what I think about the back pose. I don't really want to see these hands, but this photo is off-center. So I think that has something to do with it. Let's look at the way she posed when she was in the lineup. Okay, yeah, when she posed in the lineup, this is what I noticed in a lot of the lineup photos. She was covering her glute. So she's, like, cocked back in the hip and then covering her glute. And the head judge is, like, right here. So you want to definitely not cover your glute from the head judge. And then looking at her back pose on stage, okay, she was never in the center, or she wasn't in the center, so that'll still be off center. But yeah, it still looks like just posing maybe a little bit too hard, like arching a lot, which is, making her look a little skinny in the back. So yeah, but I'm looking forward to seeing how she looks at the Kansas City show this weekend. Also, I'm from Kansas City, so I wish I could be there. But yeah, covering her glute here. So this is an inconsistency in her front pose too. So earlier we looked at her pose, and now she goes from the back pose to the front pose, and her pose looks different. You want your pose to be solid and look the same every single time. So you need to practice and I'm not saying this to her, I'm just saying in general, you need to practice being able to be in your front pose, turn to the back, and then when you turn to the front again, landing in the exact same front pose. Otherwise, it's inconsistent, and it can definitely hurt you. So yeah, I think that's what was up with Brittany. She has looked a little bit flat. So yeah, but excited. Hopefully, like this weekend is better. Okay, and then in 5th place we have Stephanie Walty, who we did not discuss. Let's see why we didn't discuss her. Oh yeah, because it was her pro debut. Congratulations! Congratulations. Okay, so in her front pose, let's see. I don't love that this leg is almost straight. I would bend it a little bit more and angle that knee towards the judges a little bit more, just because it's lacking a lot of detail. And when you have detail everywhere else but one spot, then it draws your eye to it. I think the suit color could pop more. She could use a different suit. Let's see what suit she wore when she went pro. Oh, yeah. Okay. I would, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to have such a visceral reaction. It's just not working for me. So I get wanting to be different, but this is not working for me. I would, not that I'm the person it should work for. You should be confident in what you wear, but it's just when it has all these bright crystals, then it reads as white on stage and it looks ashy against the tan. Like everything looks very dull here. Other people's tans had some issues, but it wasn't that they looked like gray. So yeah, this is just washing her out. I would wear, and same with the makeup, like it's that same grayish tone. I wouldn't rock like a gray or a whitish color, like silvery on stage. Any saturated color would work, just not this. Like any jewel tone. She could even do like an aquamarine or something, but this is just not really popping on her. I also would say that she's driving this arm back too far because it's totally flattening out her front delt, which is not really something we like talk about very much. And I would level out the shoulders. Again, it's not usually this shoulder, this front straight arm shoulder, that is the one sagging down. It's usually this shoulder. So yeah, and I would move that hand down to the connector off the belly button because this is the smallest part of your waist. You don't want to cover up the part of you that makes you look like you have hourglass shape, which is the cinched waist. So yeah, I would rework a lot of the stuff on this front pose. What else would I want to see what happens with that leg, and then I would maybe have her point her toe less at the judges because it's kind of making that glute fall off a bit. I mean, this is one of those situations where it's like, actually, maybe hopefully her front pose is inconsistent and looks better other times. It looks pretty similar. Yeah, it just looks a little bit forced with the toe, that front facing. Let's look at her back pose. So, back pose, I think she's just posing a little bit too hard. She's arched too much, which is flattening out the glutes, and making her imbalance from top to bottom. We don't want to see this much of a bend. But maybe she looked really good in person because she got 5th place, but I don't know. It's really shortening the torso, which throws her off balance. You want to be symmetrical from top to bottom. I wouldn't angle those toes out so much. Her heels are really close together. So yeah, I would want to have her stand straighter up and not arch so much. Straighter up the torso, not arch so much. Relax your foot positioning a bit. Don't angle out as much. And different presentation in terms of like suit color and all that. Because she looks great. Like if she gets 5th and this is what her, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, but like if she's getting 5th and this is what her posing looks like, then she must be good, you know? So let's look at, and it looks like she does start to not pose as, no, she still posed pretty hard. Okay, let's look at her front pose when she signs off. Okay, this is, no. Yeah, so she's already doing this well, and this isn't even the best physique she could display. So that's really good. And let's look at who got 6th place, because we talked about her. So Ace. Yeah, okay, see? Breath of fresh air with how much the suit pops on her. The suit and makeup look really good. You can just tell the difference in vibrancy. Like, so look at her there, and then look at Stephanie compared to Stephanie. So this is an example of someone whose, like, makeup suit is popping versus not. Here we go. So here's Ace, and I said I wanted to see some changes with Ace's posing. We'll get into that. But look at the difference in... Did I already pull this up? Oh my god. What am I doing? Okay. So, okay, whatever. Here we go. Here we go. This is it. This is it, you guys. Just look at the difference in vibrancy. Like, she just looks very put together from head to toe compared to the presentation things that could have been changed here. So, yeah. Okay, now let's get into her. So Ace, I think, looks fantastic. I think the issue with her is still just this posing. So when she's pushing back that far, it's making her ribs pop out. It's causing all the detail that I'm sure she has in her core to be washed out. And it is also makes her a little imbalanced from top to bottom. So here's the end of her shoulder, and her glute is sticking out even further than that. So I would just stand up taller. That's all. Like, she looks really good. Just stand up taller so we see how tight your waist is. And also, when you're arched this much, when you're, like, sitting back in your hip this much, it makes your waist look thicker. Obviously, her waist is tiny, but we can't even tell as much because she's covering it with her hand and because she's arched so much. And I would straighten this arm instead of the little, like, teacupping situation it's doing. But this was her pro debut, so she's only going to get way better from here. And looking at her back pose, I think it's just a matter of adding some size. So she's sloping off here and could just use a little more volume in the upper body. Just overall muscle, but she looks great. So, yeah, overall muscle, so that just means extra time. Because she could get tighter, but then we're already seeing all this detail here in her hamstrings, that if she got tighter, it would be way too lean, and I don't think she would have placed sixth if she were tighter. So yeah, it's just going to be more size in the glutes, and overall, like, in order to place better. But she has everything else. Okay, and then we also were going to talk about... Okay, I brought up Africa, and then Deanna, she was just too soft, so we won't really go over Deanna, but... looking at Africa, I said she was someone I wanted us to look out for. I think she looked fantastic. I'll pick a picture where she is fully smiling. But yeah, I think the suit is pretty. I think just more size in the shoulders, but her low body looks like really good. Like, look at this bubbliness. It's reminding me of Daraja. Daraja has this like gorgeous, like slope, over top of her quad and like great glute profile, really pretty. So yeah, let's look at her back pose. I think her back pose, she has needed more size or to be leaner. Like, I think if she were a little bit leaner, then placings could have changed this day. But long term, well, actually short term, she could pull the suit down in the back and up in the front, because that would cover up, you see right here, like her low back and where her glute ends, but you see the roundness here, which she has. So if she got like a little bit tighter, then I think maybe she could have done better at this show. But yeah, very excited to see what Africa does in the future. And then looking at her, let's just pull up Daraja, so I can show you what I mean with her legs and how perfect they are. Okay. Yeah. Look at this, like, beautiful fullness at the top of her leg and her glute profile into her hamstring. Like, she's just perfect. So, yeah. Daraja, I think, is my favorite bikini competitor. Okay. So, that is my Ben Weider wrap up. And Brittany Gillespie. Actually, I have a lot of favorites. So, that's our wrap up. Congratulations to Lawna on her first pro win. I'm so excited to see what she ends up doing from here. And congratulations on Stephanie, her pro debut. She got 5th. Incredible. And Ukachi High and Brittany, just congratulations. Great show. And I'm so excited. Okay, I'm going to make another video for the other shows. Bye.